I'm fine. How many times have you said those words when you didn't really mean them? It's something we all do, sometimes out of habit, other times because we genuinely think we're okay. But are we? It's easy to brush off feelings of discomfort, stress, or sadness, especially when life keeps moving at a pace that doesn't allow us to pause and reflect. But ignoring these signs can often mean we're not as fine as we think we are. I once worked with a client who seemed to have it all together. On the surface, everything appeared perfect: career success, strong social circles, a supportive family. Yet, when she came to me, she wasn't sleeping well, felt constantly irritable, and found herself crying unexpectedly. "I don't know what's wrong with me," she said, "but I'm fine, everything's fine." It didn't take long to uncover that while she was telling herself she was fine, her body and mind were sending her distress signals she'd been ignoring for months. We all do it, to some extent. Life is busy, we have responsibilities, and admitting that we're struggling sometimes feels like a weakness. But just because you say you're okay doesn't mean you are. One of the first signs that you're not as fine as you think is when you find yourself constantly distracted. You might be at work, in a meeting, or with friends, but your mind is elsewhere. This persistent distraction isn't just about boredom or a wandering mind. It's often an indication that something deeper is bothering you. If you're always thinking about the next task, the next problem, or replaying old conversations, your brain is likely dealing with unprocessed emotions or stress. You're mentally checking out because facing what's really going on might feel too overwhelming. Another sign is irritability. Have you noticed that you've been snapping at people more often? Maybe things that never used to bother you suddenly feel unbearable. Traffic, slow internet, a co-worker's offhand comment. Irritability is a classic sign that you're under more emotional pressure than you realise. It's the mind's way of leaking out the stress you've been holding in. You might be telling yourself you're fine, but if your patience is running thin, it's time to check in with yourself. Physical symptoms are another red flag. Headaches, muscle tension, stomach issues. These can all be your body's way of telling you that something's wrong. Your body often processes stress and emotional turmoil long before your brain fully acknowledges it. If you're feeling more physically drained than usual, or if you're getting sick more often, it could be your body trying to get your attention. And then there's the constant need to keep busy. If you're filling every minute of your day with work, activities, and distractions, it might not be because you're motivated or productive. Many times, we throw ourselves into busyness to avoid dealing with difficult emotions. The busier you are, the less time you have to think. But this constant motion is unsustainable, and sooner or later, your mind and body will force you to stop. The truth is, keeping busy isn't always a sign of health. It's sometimes a sign of avoidance. Emotional numbness is a big one too. Have you ever found yourself feeling nothing at all? Not sad, not happy, just blank? Numbness is a defense mechanism. When we're overwhelmed by emotions we don't want to face, our brain sometimes shuts down entirely. It's as if we put a barrier between ourselves and our feelings because dealing with them seems too hard. But being numb is not being okay. It's a sign that something inside you needs attention, even if you can't quite figure out what it is yet. Then there's the withdrawal. When was the last time you reached out to a friend just to talk, or made plans to spend time with people you care about? When you're struggling emotionally, it's easy to retreat inward. You tell yourself you're too tired, too busy, or just need alone time. While alone time can be healthy, isolating yourself because you don't want to face conversations or interactions is another sign that you're not as fine as you think you are. The longer you pull away, the harder it becomes to reconnect, and that can lead to feelings of loneliness, which only compound the issue. It's also important to notice if you're engaging in unhealthy coping mechanisms. This can range from excessive drinking, smoking, or overeating, to spending too much time on social media, binge-watching TV, or even working long hours to the point of burnout. These are distractions that provide temporary relief but ultimately mask the underlying issues. When we're not dealing with our emotional state, we often turn to these behaviours because they offer a quick escape, but they only delay the inevitable. So, what do you do when you start to recognise these signs? The first step is acknowledging them. It's okay not to be fine. We've been conditioned to think that admitting we're struggling is a failure, but it's actually a strength. Reaching out to a therapist, talking to a friend, or simply taking time for self-reflection can be the beginning of real emotional healing. It's also important to practice self-compassion. We're often our own worst critics, and when we're feeling low, we can spiral into negative self-talk. Remind yourself that it's okay to not have everything together all the time. In the end, ignoring your emotional health doesn't make it go away. Just because you say you're fine doesn't mean you are. If you recognize any of these signs in yourself, take a moment to pause and check in. Life's too short to spend it pretending everything's okay when it isn't. You deserve to feel genuinely okay, and that starts by acknowledging when you're not.